Max Verstappen came to Silverstone hunting for control, but one Red Bull engine problem turned qualifying into a crisis. And Laurent Mekies was not just frustrated, he was furious. Because this was not simply about one lost lap, one bad session, or one unlucky moment. This was about trust. Trust in the car, trust in the power unit, trust in the people behind the fastest driver of his generation. And here's the dangerous part. Silverstone is not the kind of place that forgives weakness. Every hesitation costs time. Every engine issue creates doubt. And when Verstappen feels the car has abandoned him at the exact moment he needs it most, the entire Red Bull operation starts to look exposed. But the real question is not why the engine failed. The real question is why this moment may have revealed something much bigger inside Red Bull. Something Mekies clearly saw before most people understood it. Subscribe to the channel. Silverstone has a way of exposing everything. It exposes the brave, because the corners are fast enough to punish even the smallest doubt. It exposes the nervous, because the track never gives a driver time to breathe. And most importantly, it exposes the fragile, because when a Formula One car is not perfect around Silverstone, the whole world sees it immediately. That is why Verstappen's qualifying problem felt so much bigger than a simple mechanical failure. On paper, it could sound ordinary. A car issue, a lost chance, a driver frustrated after a difficult session. Formula One has seen that story before, but this was different. Because Verstappen is not a driver who usually looks abandoned by his own machinery. He is the driver who makes chaos look controlled. He is a driver who can take a difficult car, bend it to his will, and still drag it into places where it probably should not belong. So when even Verstappen is left exposed, the question becomes uncomfortable. Was this just bad luck? Or was Red Bull asking too much from a package that was already closer to the edge than anyone wanted to admit? And this is where Mekies' reaction matters. Because anger in Formula One is rarely just about the thing that happened in the moment. It is usually about the thing that moment revealed. Think of it like a locked door in a house. The door breaking is annoying, but the real fear comes when you realize the lock was weak for weeks and nobody fixed it before the storm arrived. That is what Silverstone can do to a team. It turns small weaknesses into public evidence. For Red Bull, qualifying was supposed to be the moment where Verstappen could still shape the weekend. Even if the car was not perfect, even if rivals looked dangerous, even if the margins were tight, qualifying gives a champion one clean chance to change the story. One lap, one attack, one opportunity to put pressure back on everyone else. But when the engine problem arrived, that chance did not just slip away. It was taken from him. And for a driver like Verstappen, that is the worst kind of frustration. Not being beaten on pace is one thing. Not having the chance to fight properly is something completely different. That is why the emotion around Mekies felt so sharp. Because from the outside, people often see only the driver. They see Verstappen's result, Verstappen's face, Verstappen's radio, Verstappen's disappointment. But inside a Formula One garage, every failure has fingerprints. The power unit has its own story. The cooling has its own story. The software has its own story. The preparation has its own story. The timing of the failure has its own story. And when those stories collide during qualifying at Silverstone, nobody can hide behind a vague explanation for long. The timing is what makes this so dangerous. A problem in practice can be studied. A problem after the session can be explained. A problem during a low-pressure run can be managed. But a problem in qualifying hits the team where it hurts most. Because qualifying is the moment where everything must come together at once. The tires must be ready. The battery must be ready. The engine must deliver. The driver must commit. The team must send the car into the perfect pocket of traffic. And the lap must survive every corner from start to finish. There is no room for weakness. There is no room for almost. And that is the brutal truth behind this Silverstone moment. Red Bull did not just lose performance. They lost control of the story. Because once the engine issue hit Verstappen's qualifying, the weekend stopped being only about lap time. It became about reliability. It became about pressure. It became about whether the team that built an era of dominance could still protect its most valuable weapon when the margins got tighter. And here is what most people missed. Mekies' fury was not only about the failed moment itself. It was about the message it sent to everyone watching. To McLaren, it suggested vulnerability. To Mercedes, it suggested opportunity. To Ferrari, it suggested that Red Bull might not be untouchable. And to Verstappen, it suggested something even more personal. He could do everything right and still be left with nothing. That is a dangerous thought for any driver. But for Verstappen, it carries even more weight because his entire career has been built on extracting certainty from pressure. He thrives when everything around him is intense because he trusts the car will answer when he demands more. At Silverstone, that trust took a hit. And once trust is damaged in Formula One, it does not return just because someone says the issue has been found. It returns only when the car proves it, lap after lap, session after session, under pressure, with rivals closing, with the championship atmosphere tightening around every decision. That is why this qualifying failure could not be treated like a small technical footnote. It changed the emotional temperature of the weekend. Suddenly, Verstappen was not just fighting the track. He was not just fighting rival cars. He was fighting doubt. And doubt is one of the most dangerous opponents in Formula One because it sits inside every braking zone, every throttle application, every moment when a driver asks the car for everything. Silverstone reward commitment, but commitment needs belief. And if even a tiny part of Verstappen's mind had to wonder whether the engine would answer at the critical moment, then Red Bull had a problem far deeper than a single lost qualifying result. But that is only the first layer. Because the real damage was not measured only in grid position, frustration, or headlines. The real damage was hidden in what this failure forced Red Bull to confront next. The second layer is where this stops being a Verstappen problem and starts becoming a Red Bull problem. Because when an engine issue hits during qualifying, it does not stay trapped inside one garage. It spreads, not physically, but mentally. It moves from the driver, to the engineers, to the strategy wall, to every person trying to make calm decisions while the whole weekend begins to tilt. And that is why Mekies' anger matters. Not because anger fixes anything. It does not. Anger does not repair an engine. It does not recover a lost lap. It does not give Verstappen back the chance he should have had. But anger can reveal what a team truly believes happened. If this had been a tiny issue, a clean explanation, a simple one-off problem, the reaction would have looked different. Frustration, yes. Disappointment, of course. But fury suggests something sharper. It suggests that someone inside the operation knew this was not just an inconvenience. It was a warning. And that warning came at the worst possible place. Silverstone is not Monaco, where track position can hide weakness. It is not a slow, tight circuit where clever strategy can sometimes cover for missing performance. Silverstone is open, fast, exposed, and brutally honest. A car that is unsettled will show it. A power unit that cannot deliver cleanly will show it. A team that is under pressure will show it. And Verstappen, more than almost anyone on the grid, understands when something is not right before the rest of the world catches up. That is what makes this moment so tense. Because from the outside, a viewer might only see a failed qualifying attempt. But inside the car, Verstappen feels a failure before anyone can fully explain it. He feels the missing response. He feels the lap slipping away. He feels the difference between attacking and surviving. Imagine sprinting toward a door that is supposed to open automatically. You trust it. You commit to it. You do not slow down because slowing down would destroy your chance. Then, at the exact second you reach it, the door stays shut. That is what a power unit problem feels like in a qualifying lap. The driver is already committed. The tires are already in the window. The timing is already set. The opportunity is already burning away. And once that moment is gone, nobody can hand it back. This is why the reaction inside Red Bull would have been so intense. Because qualifying is not just about speed. It is about preparation. It is about thousands of decisions coming together for one lap that may last only a little more than a minute, but can shape the entire race. The garage can work for hours. The engineers can study every trace of data. The driver can build confidence corner by corner. And still, all of it can collapse because one part of the car refuses to do what it is supposed to do at the worst possible time. That is the cruelty of Formula One. It looks like a sport of drivers, but it is also a sport of trust. The driver trusts the engine. The engine depends on the team depends on the data depends on the preparation. And when one link breaks, the whole chain becomes visible. That is what happened here. The failure did not simply damage Verstappen's session. It forced everyone to look at the chain. And once people start looking, they do not stop at the obvious link. They start asking why the issue appeared there, why it appeared then, whether it had signs before, whether it could happen again, whether the team had pushed too close to the limit, whether Silverstone only revealed a problem that was already waiting underneath the surface. That is the dangerous part for Red Bull. A one-off issue can be explained, a pattern cannot. And even when there is no confirmed pattern, the fear of one can be enough to change the mood of an entire weekend. Because rivals do not need proof that Red Bull is vulnerable. They only need a reason to believe it. And Silverstone gave them that reason. For McLaren, this was not just a technical problem on another car. It was an invitation. A sign that if they applied enough pressure, if they stayed close enough, if they forced Red Bull to operate without comfort, then even Verstappen could be dragged into a fight he could not fully control. For Mercedes, at a home circuit with history, speed, and emotion wrapped around every lap, it was a reminder that chaos can create openings. A weekend that looks locked can suddenly become alive when the favorite is knocked off balance. For Ferrari, it was another clue in the larger picture. Red Bull could still be fast. Verstappen could still be brilliant. But dominance is not only about having the fastest driver. It is about making sure nothing stops that driver from using his talent when it matters most. And that is exactly where the tension begins to grow. Because Verstappen's greatest strength is also what makes failures around him so damaging. He rarely gives a team excuses. He rarely leaves obvious time on the table. He rarely turns a messy weekend into a disaster by himself. So when the result slips away because the machinery does not cooperate, the spotlight turns away from the cockpit and straight toward the people responsible for giving him the tools. That is uncomfortable. It means the question changes from what could Verstappen have done to what did Red Bull fail to protect? And for a team built around precision, that question cuts deep. Because a modern Red Bull image is not just speed. It is control. It is sharp calls. It is confidence under stress. It is Verstappen stepping into the car and making the entire grid feel like they are chasing something almost impossible to reach. But Silverstone cracked that image, not destroyed it, cracked it. And sometimes a crack is more dangerous than a break, because a break forces immediate repair. A crack can spread quietly while everyone argues over how serious it really is. This is where Mekies' fury becomes more than emotion. It becomes a signal that the people closest to the problem understood the stakes instantly. Because at this level, the difference between a manageable issue and a disastrous one is not always the size of the failure. It is the timing. It is the place. It is the driver affected. It is a message it sends.